Well, in this video, we're going over the ultimate lawn care checklist for the fall season approaching. Now, I'm putting this out intentionally a little bit before fall. You may be watching it during fall or whatever season you're watching it, but I want you to be able to get ready and know exactly what to do as the fall approaches. So what I've got is several things that you need to be doing, and I've got a few things that you probably don't need to do to your lawn as we approach the fall. Let's get started. Today's video is sponsored by Yardbook. I've been using Yardbook to run my lawn care business for a long time. If you need a software to run your lawn care business, use the one I've been using since 2015. Go to yardbook.com and sign up for a free account. All right, the first thing I want to mention to you when we're talking about what to do on your yard is do keep watering the lawn. Now, what I mean is I typically recommend to people that they water their yard maybe once a week, give it a deep soaking, unless it gets really dry. Now, depending on where you live, like this year, we've had a fairly rainy year, so it doesn't mean you necessarily have to run your irrigation once a week if you're getting plenty of rain. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is you don't want your lawn going into winter drought stress. I think some people just don't think about it at that point. They're like, well, it's turning brown anyway, it's getting close to winter. I'm talking more so warm season lawns. Cool season lawns, I don't think you want to go in drought stress either, especially, and you don't want to not water if you spend a lot of money overseeding the lawn. But what can happen if you have a drought stress lawn, if you're entering the winter months, is that it doesn't come out looking so hot the next spring, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So another thing is if you put down a pre-emergent, that needs to be watered in at some point to be effective, and sooner the better, I would think, and not waiting around for 3 weeks before it gets some rain. So in my area, it can be pretty dry in the fall, so I'm asking you just to be conscious of it. Yes, it doesn't probably need the same water all the time, and if we have plenty of rain, it's still green like my yard, then it's probably fine. But just if it's been super hot and dry, don't let it be neglected heading into winter, because it could definitely affect the lawn appearance for the next spring. Now, the next thing I wanted to mention is your mowing practices, because that definitely changes for me. We cut the grass yesterday. I can show you here in just a second when I'm going to actually look at the grass up close. But what I want to tell you, and this particularly applies if you have Bermuda grass lawn, but probably for other grasses as well. The Bermuda, as the days begin to get shorter and you approach fall, I see this very regularly. Some people just insist I'm going to cut it the same height all the time. Well, to do that, you probably have to cut it fairly often. If you're only going to cut it once a week, and I know that sounds like a lot for some of you that don't want to cut it that often, but if you're only going to cut it once a week, you probably still need to just barely take the tip off the grass, especially as you approach the fall. Now, the reason being is the grass, actually, let me show you this part. So this grass is looking pretty good and was cut yesterday, and maybe this isn't the greatest example, but if we get down here close, this early in the morning, you peel it back there, you see all that brown. There's a lot of brown in there and some green, and that's probably going to become more amplified as we get closer and closer to fall. So what happens is if you mow it shorter, you're taking off the little bit of green that's actually on the tip of that blade of grass, and it's left brown, it's less stunted, it's not going to grow much, and it kind of stresses out the lawn. So if you want it green, as we get into like September time frame, and I mow mine usually through October, I'm just barely taking any off the grass, or just mow it less often. But if you say, nah, I'm gonna mow it down, lower, and it may not turn green again because it's just the days are changing, seasons are changing, the grass is transitioning. So just understand that. And the third thing I want to mention is your fall pre-emergent. You need to have a plan and know what you want to do with that. And this is something I'm actually making a change to my own program this year. I'm going to go with a split fall application instead of just one fall application. And I saw some research recently that just showed if you'll just take how much ever product you were putting out one time and split it, it'll automatically be more effective than it would have been if you just did it one time. Now, in this situation, I should say, the research was specifically with Spectacle, which is what I use. And so that's what I'm going to do. I was previously doing one application, 6.5 ounces, and putting Simazine with it, maybe 2,4-D. And this year, I'm going to split that up into 2 3.5 ounce applications. So I did bump it up from 6.5 to 7 total ounces. Where I live near Birmingham, Alabama, I'm planning on starting in mid-September. The other key is on that mid-September app, I'm actually putting in there with the Spectacle 2.5 ounces of Celsius in the application. You say, now why do you do that? Well, again, I was just at a presentation, saw some research. They call it dual defense, InView does. And I just ordered 40 bottles of Celsius for myself. So, and when I crunched the numbers, it's actually not that expensive, especially when I'm doing 2 apps of spectacle and cutting the rate down on each of those individual apps compared to doing 1 full app. So with the Celsius, the idea is if you can get it out there when the POA is still young, then it's very, very effective at controlling young POA, not so effective at controlling more mature POA. So for me, that's the latter half of September and through October. Now when you get to November, not so effective on controlling the POA. At that point, you might want to switch over and use something like Tribute Total or Revolver that's going to be more effective on more mature POA. So that's what I'm planning on. The first app using the Spectacle and the Celsius, the second app, come back with more Spectacle and add the Simazine in with that. The fourth thing I wanted to mention is having a plan for next year and knowing what you're going to do. I make tweaks to my program, not every year, but it seems like every year. And this year, I actually made several tweaks. I added an insecticide. I did a blanket application for sedges, which is something I hadn't typically done. I tweaked a little bit of what I was doing early in the year that didn't work as good as I had hoped. So know what you're going to do, and that's important for a number of reasons. One, I don't want to be scrambling around, when it's time and trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? And you have to have a plan for the whole year, in my opinion, because depending on when I'm going to spray this insecticide might affect when I'm going to fertilize, and so I need to understand, depending on when I'm going to fertilize, might depend on what kind of fertilizer I'm going to use. If I'm going to put it out at this time, well, I might need to have the right one that's going to make sure that I'm not just wasting fertilizer. So if you're going to go through your program and tweak some things, I would encourage you to do that. Before I go to the next one, I did want to mention I've got a couple things out there at lawncarelife.com. One is a mentorship program I've started. It's a 12-month mentorship program. You can sign up for a free 15-minute call, talk about it's going to be a good fit for you. That's for people that want to do weed control and fertilization like me. They're with warm season grasses and they need a mentor to help them get going in this business. The other thing is called the Bermuda Zoysia Academy. It's a new course I just finished up, and there's actually a free lesson. I'll put both these links in the description below. There's a free lesson on how to understand fertilizer for your lawn, and just watching that lesson you'll get 25% off the course. I think the regular price of the course is $79, so you get 25% off. And if you want a total program for what to do in Bermuda Zoysia lawn, including fertilizer and insecticide and fungicide, and just understanding all things Bermuda Zoysia grass, then you might want to check that out. The fifth thing is take advantage of your EOP programs. This is most of the people in the lawn care business like me. I just placed a large order. Again, I mentioned buying 40 bottles of Celsius for my own lawn care business. And the EOP program, some of them start in August, some start September, some start October, maybe some even November. But most of them are over by the end of the year. So if you know what you want to buy and you've got that plan, again, you want to have that on the front end. And so I know what I'm going to need for next year. The best time to buy it typically is during this EOP program. The reason is oftentimes there's some price breaks involved, but then also you get better terms. So a lot of stuff I'm buying right now, I don't actually have to pay for until next June. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. Again, I also like to do it because you just get a better price. And the sixth thing I want to mention is the fall, is don't neglect the tough weeds. Fall is one of the best times to go after tough weeds. And in my area, I'm thinking specifically of weeds like Dallas grass. For that specifically, I use Tribute Total, and I think the plan is if you use, spray it in October, spray it in November, and then maybe spray it again the fall in March or April. But in the fall, it's more susceptible to the herbicide than it would be in the summer when it's at full strength. All right, I want to run quickly through a few things that you don't want to do. I mentioned earlier about watering a lawn. What I would not do is just run my sprinkler all winter long. Usually in the winter, we're getting plenty of rain. It doesn't need near as much water. The grass is dormant where I live. Again, if you have cool season grass, still don't think it needs near as much rain. But for me, I just, after I water in that pre-emergent in the fall, I just think I can basically turn the thing off. And I probably, for a warm season lawn where I would live, wouldn't even consider turning it back on probably till April, but most likely would be May. Second thing I want to mention not to do, and this was really emphasized in some research I saw recently about not scalping your yard. I have Bermuda grass at my house. I like to scalp it and keep it short. And I will say that on the last cut of the year, maybe late October, I'll take it down just a little bit, and that basically takes the green out of it, and I'm just telling it to stop growing. I'm tired of mowing you until next year. But what you don't want to do is to scalp it way low, because what that does is it makes it far more susceptible to weed pressure the following year, especially with Bermuda, because the Bermuda is so thin in the winter, you can basically look at it and see the dirt. So there's just plenty of room for the weeds to grow. So if you'll leave it a little bit longer, I think it will put less stress on the lawn, which may help it survive the winter, but also definitely help with the weed pressure that you're going to face on that lawn.